First of all, I want to talk about the key topic in college admissions. At Stanford, we call it intellectual vitality. A lot of schools call this intellectual curiosity. And it's what Himes was talking about. When you go to a college, the primary thing you do is you take classes with university professors. Have you guys ever met college professors? Any of you met a college professor? You have? You have? They're some of the smartest people in the world. They are huge nerds, and I mean nerd in the best possible sense. Like, they're obsessed with very specific subjects. They go and get their PhD in positive psychology or, moral philosophy. And so, as an admission officer, the first person you work for is a college professor. So when I was at Stanford, I would go talk to them. You'd be a liaison to the philosophy department, psychology department. And you say, listen, you don't get to pick the students who get to come to Stanford. I'm gonna help pick as an admission officer. Who do you want me to pick to bring to your school? Imagine, so I've just told you what a college professor is like. Imagine what they might say to you. They say things like Himes talked about. Bring me the smartest students you can, who genuinely love learning, ideally are excited about my subject, philosophy, architecture, design, interior design. Like, I'd love to have them in class. And then secondarily, oh, by the way, I hope they're not jerks. Bring good people to campus. We want good kids. But ideally, imagine you guys are teaching a class. What are the kind of students you want in it? Students like that, super smart, super engaged, who care about the material, who are going to approach a teacher at office hours and say, hey, I really wanted to follow up with you on this, genuinely, not to curry favor, but I'm interested in these questions. Can you get me a reading list? So what I'm talking about there is this quality that I've labeled intellectual vitality. That set of characteristics, that's the number one thing schools are looking for. And at Stanford, for example, and all these schools, they have an actual rating category. If you guys all got hired to work at Stanford admissions, and I was training you, all right, you're my new group of admission officers, we got to read all these applications this year, how are we going to do it? The first category we need to talk about is intellectual vitality. And it's a rating you assign to an application. How do you figure out if a student has these qualities? It comes from a few places, but the ones I want to talk about are, number one, your activities. Doing academic activities. All the things that you're going to do in college. Reading, writing, taking classes. So when you guys are thinking strategically, hey, how can I spend my time with extracurriculars? Sports, fantastic. If you get good enough and you get recruited, that's one of the best ways to get into college. Doing clubs and leadership, fantastic. Lots of students do that now, right? To stand out in this pool, to show intellectual vitality, you want to do academic activities. Examples, you want to start a reading group. If you're really passionate about interior design, you want to write a very specific article and submit it to a newspaper, a magazine. You want to take extra classes if you can. I know you guys take a ton of classes here, but there's so many free classes online, right? At all these top schools, MIT has a class. Let's say you love art history. You can go take MIT art history. And so now, as an admission officer, when I'm sizing up your application, all right, does this student have IV? I'm looking at your activities and I'm seeing a lot of academic activities. It seems like the student genuinely loves learning, is legitimately interested in philosophy, art history, business. And so it comes from a grouping of activities you're doing, often outside the classroom, that suggests to me okay, this is someone my professor might really want to work with. The second place you go to is the writing. What you write about for college is so important. So many students, I was one of them. When you get to the application, some of you guys will have seen it, 11th graders, you might be getting ready for it. But they ask you a really broad question. It's called a personal statement. It's the big essay. And so yeah, basically tell us about yourself. What's something you would like college to know about you? And this is where a lot of kids make mistakes because they think all right, I can tell you anything. I don't know, I come from a big Irish family. A challenge, yeah. One time I was in a rainstorm and I had to change a tire. Man, something hard I went through. All right, I'll be vulnerable. I broke up with my girlfriend. That was very difficult. All to you guys personally, meaningful topics that really do impact your life. They are personal. But to an admission officer, remember, who's working for a college professor who's brilliant, who's a Nobel laureate at schools like Stanford, do you think they want to read about a breakup or changing a tire in a rainstorm or your big Irish family? Like, no, not primarily, right? They want to hear about the qualities of your mind, right? Like, what ideas do you care about? What gets you fired up? Like, if you're into philosophy, let me hear you talk about the death of Socrates, and maybe you compare it to MLK's letter from a Birmingham jail, and you start exploring, man, there's this tough tension between Socrates and MLK on civil disobedience. And we read these two articles in class, and I found it super fascinating. I'm not sure where I stand on it, but these are important issues to me. That's the kind of personal statement that's going to hit IV, intellectual vitality. So you demonstrate that one quality from activities and from writing. And the whole reason we want to do it is because the admission officer who's rating you, in about 10 to 40 minutes, this total stranger who doesn't know you at all, who's sizing up, are you legitimately intelligent?